Well, that's a deep question you asked. Do I have hope for New Orleans East in the 21st century? You know, I can get up every day. I can live without Mardi Gras. I can live without gumbo. I can live without the Saints winning. I can live without going fishing. I can live without my favorite beer, my best cigar. But I refuse to live a day without hope. Hope is that little voice in your head that whispers maybe when the whole world is screaming no. And for me, being from New Orleans, where I grew up, how I grew up, I thought my name was Noah. Can I go to the store? No. Do you think I can be an engineer? No. Can I go to this school? No. I remember you used to ask pretty little girls, may I have your number? No, they told me no. So I had to have hope. So the work that we're doing is, part of the work that we're doing is to instill hope in the eyes of the children, to let them know that regardless of how they're growing up today, they can get up every day and create a better tomorrow for themselves. Do I have hope? That's all I have. My name is Calvin Mackie. The name of my company is My Nola, and I'm the founder and CEO. Now, New Orleans is a different place. New Orleans is, New Orleans has a culture. I believe it was Tennessee Williams that said, outside of San Francisco, New Orleans, and New York, everywhere else is Cleveland. New Orleans has a culture. It has a vibe. It has a history. New Orleans has a pulse. So as a kid growing up in New Orleans, it wasn't some big metropolitan area. So we were just allowed, or we were able to roam from different neighborhoods. And the fact that New Orleans has a history, I mean, you got to tap into people who had grown up in a city. It was 2 and 3 generations in a city. So you got to know elders. And, in the fact that I got to know elders, I got to hear all of this history that was passed down and the wisdom that was passed down. So a lot of times people from New Orleans, people say, you're like an old soul. It's not that we're an old soul, it's just that we've spent time with elders and we have a sense of history that informs our present, that motivates us for the future. All right. Growing up in New Orleans, I was a public school product. I was showing somebody a picture from my 3rd grade class the other day, and they were like, wow, you actually went to school, a public school with white people. So I went to elementary school in the early 70s, and that's when white flight was beginning. So black people was moving in the middle class neighborhoods and the white people was moving out. So all through elementary, there was a minority number of white people in the elementary school I went to, even though we had white people. So after middle school, after elementary school, I wanted to go to the middle school where all my cousins had gone. I keep telling people I just wanted to go to McDonald 28 where my cousins had gone, and I dreamt of smoking weed and playing basketball just like my cousins did. There was a teacher in the 6th grade who called my mom and said, I don't think he should go to that school. He has more, I don't think that school can offer him what he really needs. My mom said, where should he go? And my teacher told my mom where I should go, and it necessitated me taking 2 buses every morning. So when my sons was in the 7th grade, I was still taking them to school every day. No, we took our sons to schools all the way through K through 12. But in the 7th grade, I had to get up, walk a half a mile, and then catch 2 buses just to get to my middle school. And that middle school was Francis W. Gregory, and they had a program there where they invited kids from all over the city to come, called an accelerated program. And we had teachers, almost like an honors program, but it was like a smaller school in a bigger school. So even though we was taking these honor classes, I had the opportunity to interact with kids, again, from the community. And then in my 10th grade year, I actually went to a school, an all-white male Catholic school by the name of Brother Martin. The only reason I went to Brother Martin was because they had a basketball team. The coach recruited me, and they had a beautiful gym with a scoreboard hanging from the ceiling, and they had shooter shirts. And I went to Brother Martin, and it was one of the best and worst decisions I ever made in my life. Many of my classes, I was only 1 or 2 black boys. In the entire year that I was at Brother Martin, I made 1 B. I made all A's and 1 B. But Brother Martin, it was one of the best decisions because Brother Martin introduced me to the world that I was going to have to live in and compete in. All my life I had gone to public school. This one year I go to this all-white male private school. And the teachers and administration brought hell upon me. And I believe that's where I get my fighting spirit from, because a lot of the other black boys just sat there and took it. And I fought them hook, line, and sinker. When I left that school, I made 1 B. And still to this day, I claim I didn't even make a B in that class. if the teacher screwed me in that class, and I left that school, and then I went to McDonald 35. McDonald 35 was the first high school in the city of New Orleans, African-American high school in the city of New Orleans for black people, one of the most famous high schools in the state of Louisiana. And I had to fight to get in that school because they only accept kids in the 9th and 10th grade. So my parents had to go to the school board and fight for me to get admitted as a junior because I had gone to this private school. So then I went to McDonald 35, and I've taken time telling that story because my church-through education plays a large role in the person that I am and the work that I do. I really don't have a personal connection to New Orleans East, but being from New Orleans, we remember what New Orleans East was. When we used to come to New Orleans East, this is where like the rich black people lived. This was like the middle class black people with new houses. And we used to come out to the east, and this is where the mall was, and you had houses with big lawns and swimming pools, and that was New Orleans East, right? That was the dream. That was the Jeffersons moving up. If I only can move to New Orleans East. So when you look at New Orleans East in terms of what it is now versus what it was, the personal connection for me is that I want to be a part of the movement to bring New Orleans East back and give all our children access to what they need to achieve and succeed in the 21st century. Wow. You say, where was I when I got first introduced to STEM education? That's a very emotional question for me now, because 2 weeks ago, my godfather passed away, and I just went to Los Angeles weekend before last to bury him. And the reason why it's emotional, because in 1979, my dad had a roofing company. My dad dropped out of school in the 8th grade to pick cotton, but he started a roofing company. So every summer, I used to work on a roof with my dad, even as a little boy. So I was always cutting things, hammering things, and nailing things, and you can consider that STEM, right? Because, STEM is about doing. But in 1979, my dad put all his kids in a car, and we drove 2,000 miles straight down Interstate 10 into Los Angeles, California, to see my godfather. And I tell a story, I'll never forget, we get there, and I ran up to him, and I hugged him. First time I was in California, and we go in the house, and him and my dad sitting there drinking beer, talking and laughing about the good times. And he said, "Hey boy, let's go to the store." And he took me to Sears. And Sears and Robots. People, y'all may not even remember Sears, but he took me to Sears, and he got me an erector set. And when we got the erector set, we went back to his house, and while he and my dad sat there and laughed, drinking beer, I built a car, and they had a little motor in the box with a rubber band, and I built that car, and the car rolled across the floor. And my godfather looked at my dad and screamed and said, "That boy gonna be an engineer." I had never heard the word before, I couldn't spell a word, but the only thing I remembered from that day was that my uncle said I was gonna be an engineer. And all through my life, when I went back to school, they said, "What you gonna be?" I said, "My uncle said I'm gonna be an engineer." When I went to college with poor test scores and things like that, they said, "What you gonna be?" I said, "I'm gonna be an engineer." And they said, "Well, we don't know if you got the scores." And the only thing that really resonated with me was that my uncle said I'm gonna be an engineer. And that informs the work that I do now. My uncle gave me a kit when I was 9 years old, and I sit here before you now with a BS in mathematics and 3 engineering degrees, including a PhD in engineering. He planted the seed. And the work that we're doing now is that we are planting those seeds that my uncle planted in me when I was 9 years old. The story of STEM NOLA. I used to be a professor at Tulane. I'm the first and only African American ever tenured in the history of the College of Engineering at Tulane University. I was tenured in the mechanical engineering department. I was a professor at Tulane for 12 years. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, Tulane decided to keep the football team and eliminate the engineering program. So you hear about people getting tenures, and professors say, "I got tenure and I got a job for life." Well, you're meeting someone that actually lost tenure. At 37 years old, making over $100,000, it was ripped away from me in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. I moved back to New Orleans to make a change and make a difference in my community. So other universities were recruiting me, but I decided to stay. So I started an alternative energy company. I started a consulting company to feed my family. But I never forget, one day my son came home, and my son said, "Daddy, I don't like science anymore." I'm like, "Boy, you out your rabbit mind. It's in your DNA. Your mother as a pharmacist, went to Xavier University. I got 4 STEM degrees. I used to whisper, you know, Newton's laws to your mama's stomach. It's in your DNA. And he said, Daddy, the teacher just talked to the board, and I like to do stuff with my hands. I said, well, that has to change. So we went in the garage, and I started buying all these STEM kits. And he came in the garage. We started doing STEM on Saturdays. My other son came in the garage. We started doing STEM together. All the kids in the neighborhood would see us in the garage. They started inviting their friends, so we started doing STEM together. And before you know it, we would have had 20 kids in the garage on Saturdays. One day, a couple of months later, my son came home. I said, son, what's your grades? He said, I got all A's. I said, now that's my boy. He said, Daddy, my friends want to know how I know all this. I said, did you tell them you do this in the garage with your dad? He said, yeah, Dad, but my friends need this. Right then and there, my son realized that he had been exposed to somebody and things that his friends had not. In his heart of hearts, he believed that if his friends were exposed to those people and those things, they'll be just as bright as him. The frightening part about that conversation is that my son was attending a magnet school in Jefferson Parish in Louisiana, one of the top elementary schools in the state. So if his friends were not being exposed, what did that say about all the rest of the kids? So right then and there, my wife Tracy and I decided that we had to do something. How could we give the community that which we were giving our sons? And we took $100,000 of our own dollars. And December 14, 2013, we had the first STEM Fest. We came to New Orleans East, Joe Brown Park, and we just bought everything that we can buy. And we just put it out, and we planned for 100 kids to show up. On that day, 350 kids and 150 parents showed up in the gym. It was cold and raining, and we realized that we were onto something, right? People really wanted this stuff. And since then, we've engaged over 100,000 kids, 20,000 families. We put over $1.5 million in the hands of college students as interns. And we believe that we've built a model now that can be scaled across the country. We're embarking on building a $10 million, 42,000 square foot STEM innovation hub in New Orleans East. I believe when people have to leave their community to get something of value, that's a sign of the statement of value that society has placed on them. So why do I have to leave my community and go way across town to get something of value? Valuable things should be in our community, especially like STEM. So we want to create a place where kids can come. You know, if kids play football, there's gyms for them to go to. Even in New Orleans, there's something called a New Orleans Center of Creative Arts. My brother is Anthony Mackie. My brother is Captain America. The first black Captain America is my younger brother. Same mama, same daddy. And when he was in middle school and he said, you know what, I'm interested in the arts, because I was trying to push him in STEM, and the teacher said, you know what, I think he'll be good on stage because he had behavior problems. And they put him in his arts program and he flourished. But you know what they had? They had something called the New Orleans Center of Creative Arts. And he could leave his school and go to the New Orleans Center of Creative Arts. If you want to be a quarterback during the summer, they got all these football camps. They got AAU. They got travel teams for people who want to be sports. But if you want to be the next great scientist, the next great engineer, the next great innovator, where do you go? Most schools don't even offer STEM, let alone you becoming a great scientist. So we're going to create, for lack of a better word, the NOCA of STEM, where kids who got these talents, these gifts, and even these desires can come and learn the skills they need for the 21st century. So we're not talking about learning plumbing and learning welding and learning being an electrician. We're talking about the vocational skills and certifications that our kids need for the 21st century. So they'll be able to leave their schools and come learn the Internet of Things, data science, predictive analytics, machine language, coding, cybersecurity, sensors. They're going to be able to learn everything that they need to be a functional citizen in the 21st century. If there was a message I want to give young people, you know, one of my favorite phrases is keep pushing. Man cannot create a test to measure what God has put in your heart. Man can't create barriers big enough that your God can't help you get over. So whatever it is, you know, that you have in you, whatever it is that you believe in, whatever will keep you up at night. And I ain't talking about Fortnite. I ain't talking about twerking and tweeting and twatting. Whatever keep you up at night that's in your spirit, that's what you should get up every day and work like hell to accomplish. regardless of the obstacles before you, regardless of who may tell you no. But you need to know that you've been impregnated with greatness. And if you don't give birth to it, the world just going to have to go on without it. The cure for cancer may be in you. The cure for AIDS may be in you. Like Kizzy Corbett, the cure for COVID was in her. And if she didn't bring forth that dream, we may still be in trouble. So you got to ask yourself, fall on your knees every night and ask God, what is it within me that I'm supposed to do before my eyes close? And then get up and work like there's no tomorrow.